Welcome back to Carvelis. In tonight's edition of The Issue, Jackie Huggins joins me. She's the co-chair of the National Congress of Australia's First Peoples. Also, Anthony Dillon, who's a researcher. They both join me to talk about, well, what has been a bubbling away issue in relation to history and how we celebrate history and the parts of history we don't celebrate. Welcome to both of you. Now, the Prime Minister reckons efforts to change the date of Australia Day and to edit statues, which are another sort of a subset of that debate, is a fringe preoccupation. Jackie, is it a fringe preoccupation?
Look, I am certainly in the yes camp for the statues and for the change of date. I think you know, it is now 2017. This is not a new issue by any means. It's been a long time debating about, you know, whether the date should be changed or whether the statues need to be corrected in that sense. And I think it is a debate that will go on until we get a resolution at the end of it.
So you're not giving up until you change Australia Day and change some of those those messages on the statues, or is it tearing them down altogether?
Well, I'm certainly not giving up on change of the date. And in fact, in the 1970s, I wrote to my then boss to say I'm not celebrating today because it is the invasion of our country, and many of my people have been killed and brutalised and massacred. And until we amend the history books and until we amend the way that we look at history in Australia, I won't be participating. So it's really not a new debate at all. And I think the statues, of course, look, what Stan Grant and, you know, this needs to be corrected here. What he did say, that he wanted the statues to be corrected, not pulled down, not defaced, unfortunately, like they were in Sydney, but let's have a real conversation around this. And I don't think that, you know, the Australian community, let alone many people, would want to talk about our history or the unpalatables that so clearly put us in the position that we are today.
Anthony, I know you take a different position, but you heard Jackie there, and she's not alone. In fact, I would say, you know, a lot of the Indigenous community wants to change the date of Australia Day, and also feels pretty upset and kind of challenged by some of those things that are said on those signs. You know, Australia, of course, 65,000 years of Aboriginal history here. Why do you take a different position?
Okay, well, first of all, yes, a lot do want it changed, but there's a lot who don't want it changed, so we shouldn't just be guided by consensus. And no, I don't think they are hurting. They may claim to be hurting, but they're not. It's just an excuse to be upset. I would rather focus on the more important things, the unpalatables of today that are happening in 2017. Let's deal with unemployment, poverty, poor housing, child abuse, sexual abuse, violence, that sort of thing. Let's get those things done first, and then we can talk about the other things.
Okay, that list that you just, you know, framed there, they're all things that a lot of Indigenous campaigners also talk about. Can't people walk and chew gum?
They can, but let's get the most important ones done first and then deal with the second ones, because the second ones are a big distraction from the ones that I'm more passionate about. And look, secondly, most importantly, I think if you keep promoting this message that people are upset by 26th of January, you are disempowering them. You're teaching them that their happiness is bound up in the actions of others or what name you give to a day, and that's just nonsense.
It's interesting you said, you know, get the other stuff done and then look at it. Does that mean you think that it might be worth looking at? I didn't know that was, you know, on your agenda. Is that something you think might be worth considering at some point?
It might be worth considering at some point, but I would say let's get the more urgent things done first and then listen to what the proponents have to say.
Jackie, how about that argument? I've heard it many times before. I don't think Anthony's the only one that argues this position, which is there are immediate and very urgent, you know, issues facing the Indigenous community that you need to deal with those first.
Oh, look, I don't think... I think all these things can be run simultaneously. You know, I don't think there's kind of first issues, second issues. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this country are the most dispossessed, are the most impoverished, and most unemployed, the sickest people. Of course, we all know that, and I work every day to make sure that we have a voice in terms of bringing those issues forward with the government and with key stakeholders and the wider community. I don't for 1 minute think that any of those issues should be left on the back burner. In fact, of course, they should be catapulted to the highest level in terms of being able to be addressed and to be worked through. And, you know, we know that in our communities we have the solutions. That is what our Redfern statement is actually about. So I've been working very hard, as has my organisation, National Congress, and our alliance partners, in trying to change those things around. But at the same time, when we see something that is running as well, I think it's our duty to pick up on that. And I think that, you know, these things are very important. Symbolism is very important. And we need to, of course, do the symbolic and do the practical, but we can do them at the same time. And I don't think, you know, we need to run out of energy or put our reserves into one particular area where we feel so strongly. And history is one of the cases in point. That, you know, we do need to look at truth-telling, and that is what the Uluru Statement is about, and that's why we met in Uluru, and the Referendum Council back then put forward not only the voice but a makarata and a truth-telling commission to be put forward. And I think until we have those honest and open debates between us, this great wound that we still have festering amongst us will not heal. So we need to get it out on the table. We need to talk about the unpalatables of history and what that has brought to us and why we are in our present position. I think it's all interlinked, and we need to be talking about all those things.
Anthony, what do you think of that, the truth-telling process that the Uluru Statement has recommended to the government? The government, to be clear for those who are not all over the detail like us three probably are, is considering through its cabinet process all of those recommendations. Labor has supported all of those recommendations, but the government still hasn't got behind it. Do you support a truth-telling process?
I have no problems with truth-telling processes. I'm all for history being told as it is, but also let's speak some truths about what's happening in the present. And let's talk about practical things. Let's not use imagery like wounds. You know, I want to know about the real things, like the physical wounds on Aboriginal women who get their brains thumped, smashed, their heads smashed with broken bottles of a night time. I want to deal with those things. And my biggest concern is, look, yes, tell truth, but let's not promote a falsehood that a person cannot be happy until the date of Australia Day has changed, because many are already happy. They're not upset by the date of Australia. Again, it's just an opportunity for some to be upset. Like just this weekend, we've read about atrocities in Roebourne. We know about childhood suicides. They're the most important things to deal with. The symbolic things, leave them till later on.
Yeah, but Anthony, how about the argument Jackie just made that actually symbolism does matter, that you can do quite a lot through symbolism in terms of changing the way people feel about their recognition by their country. Now, of course, respect is something that I think is part of the human condition. I don't think you disagree with that. When you feel respected by your government and by your fellow citizens, by your neighbours, that your value and your self-worth does shift.
They already are respected, okay? Just simply changing the date of Australia Day is not going to show more respect. And again, it just promotes this myth, this BS, that you're upset and that your well-being is in the hands of someone else simply because they choose not to change the date. And that is extremely disempowering. And symbolism does not matter to those who are living in the dirt, in poverty, in fear of their lives, who are hungry, who are unemployed.
Jackie, I'll give you the final word. Symbolism, well, you know, I visited lots of remote communities, and the first thing that people will tell you is that their housing is appalling and that there are no jobs and that they feel like the system is pretty much stacked against them. They don't really often raise the other issues.
Well, until we get to the root cause of these issues, which is intergenerational trauma and stress, of course, colonialism, and the way that history has denied us a rightful place in this country. As I've said before, we will never, ever proceed. And until we change the date, that will be an issue that's brought up every Australia Day and constantly. You know, in 1995, Australia had, that was to celebrate Australia Day, the first time. So it's relatively new in terms of, you know, having the day as a celebration. But I think until we get to the fundamentals of why we are aggrieved, how we feel disempowered, and one of them is through history, that we will never move forward.
Anthony, I saw you there almost mocking what Jackie was saying. Clearly Jackie believes what she says and it's based on her own experience. Why do you think it's funny?
Okay, first of all, I love Jackie. She's a beautiful person.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yep, but look,
show some respect, please.
Many are already have moved forward. So it's nonsense to say that they're not moving forward. And the cause of dysfunction today is not bound up in 26th of January, the invasion, call it whatever you want. We are never, ever victims of the past, but only ever victims of our view of the past, as indeed many thousands of Aboriginal people, such as you, myself, my father and others, have proven.
Yes,
we're going to leave it there. But
until we address our past, we cannot move on to the future. That is the lesson of history, that it's a lesson of democracies throughout this country. So until we address that, how are we going to move on, Anthony? Seriously.
Like I said, many already have moved on, and I love you, Jackie.
All right, we'll leave it on the love note and respect to you both, but Jackie absolutely is a very formidable Indigenous female leader in this country. Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Anthony.
See you later.
Tricia.
I'll be back in a moment with Zeitgeist. We're going to look at what's been happening on social media, and it's been a very busy space. Stay with us.